With razor claws and killer patience, the Bengali tiger is one of the most fearsome creatures on Earth. Until humans came along with deadly weapons such as the subatomic machine gun, Mamuka Gogodze, and shatter-resistant rulers, the tiger was the ultimate killing machine. They tore their prey apart, killing for sport. With a monster scrum and a lethal maul, the Leicester Tiger was very much the same. Possibly the most fearsome team in the league, until Saracens came along with deadly weapons such as breakdown competence, Owen Farrell, and a completely joyless sense of robotic efficiency towards scoring tries. Tigers were the ultimate winning machine. They tore their opposition apart, winning in sport. However, the pair also have another thing in common. They both have a lifespan of 9 years. After last season missing out on a playoff spot for only the third time in Premiership history, last month Leicester released Director of Rugby Matt O'Connor from his contract just 1 week into the season, making club hero and very Irish Irishman Jordan Murphy their fourth boss in less than 2 years, marking rock bottom for a club that once dominated English rugby. Long gone are the days of 9 consecutive finals and 5 titles. These days, Tigers lose at home to Worcester. For most clubs, finishing 5th would not be an issue, but Leicester are not most clubs, and this, for me, is where the problems begin. The Leicester Tigers are one of the most recognisable brands in rugby. When I was a little kid and rugby was no more to me than the thing that made my dad angry, I still knew who the Leicester Tigers were. Nowadays, Tigers themselves aren't so sure. They're like the character at the start of a JRPG. They remember nothing about themselves other than the fact that they're destined to be great. So, let's start with the basics. Who are the Leicester Tigers and just what is their brand? The Leicester Tigers brand can be broken down into 2 main components: the club reputation and the team reputation. External reasons and rugby reasons. As a club, Leicester's reputation is that of the best team in England. They win the Premiership every year, they provide the bulk of the England team, and are always in the mix for the European Cup. Welford Road is usually sold out, a spiritual home to 26,000 Top Gear magazine subscribers who come to clap along to Smoke on the Water, seemingly with no idea how utterly ridiculous they all look. Leicester are a proper rugby club, where the players have a drink with the supporters right after walloping all comers by 38 penalty tries. Leicester's brand is dominance, but the kind of dominance that's inclusive to the people they're oppressing. The "we love Chairman Mao" to Saracens' "we shall not speak out against Stalin." As a team, Leicester is synonymous with a certain type of game plan. Tigers play traditional rugby, and traditionally they play it better than anyone else. Big scrum, excellent maul, halfbacks who run the game but not the ball. Their backs might as well spend most of the game babysitting the pack's kids, but when they get the ball, they're going to do something with it. Leicester was the place to be if you were a forward, particularly an English one. You get to play rugby that suited your strengths in the biggest games, in front of a packed crowd and the England selectors. Scrums, mauls, pick and goes, chucking a few pies and a cure for male pattern boldness, and phew, it's a forward's paradise. All of Leicester's problems can be traced back to one of these 2 ideologies. For me, Leicester's sense of self has stood in the way of its success and its progress. So where did this all start? In 2013, World Rugby made a small change that had a big impact on the game. By subtly altering the breakdown laws, they encouraged teams to counter-attack rather than kick. Suddenly, running rugby was the order of the day. Harlequins, whose style of play was more akin to a backflip than a tactic, won the league that season, proving just how far rugby had come so quickly. Give it 3 years and all the other top teams in the Premiership were playing far more dynamic rugby, while Leicester was still trying to smash the ball around the park for a big bunch of bastards. All in the name of if it ain't broke. And without fixing it, Leicester finished 3rd. For most clubs, this would be considered fine, good, or at worst, a 1-season blip. However, the Leicester board, used to being first, saw this as an issue that needed immediately addressing. Desperate to maintain the club's reputation at the expense of the team's style, they hired Aaron Major, a man who had no coaching experience but did have a Kiwi accent, as their new attack coach, and they started piling pressure on then coach Richard Cockerell to play more free-flowing rugby. Cockerell was having none of it and stuck to his pack's guns. Leicester continued to play forward-orientated rugby with only flashes of flair. A 4th place finish followed, and Richard Cockerell was gone. Doubling down, a mad scramble saw the board give Major the job, hopeful he could sacrifice the old Leicester way to the rugby gods in exchange for a taste of the glory they'd become so addicted to over those 8 years. It was a bit like an alcoholic leaving his loving wife for the first woman he found in the hope she'd let him drink. But turns out Major didn't even have any booze in his fridge. So after the first few months in charge, he was out on the streets and unceremoniously replaced by Matt O'Connor, returning to Leicester after a borderline calamitous spell at Leinster. In his previous life, O'Connor, who looks exactly like what you get if you ask a random person off the street to draw what they think a rugby coach looked like, was the attack coach who taught the Tigers' backs how to rub their hands together to keep warm while the ball was in the scrum. But this time, his job was very different. It was to calm things down and get the team back into respectable shape, and then hopefully kick on and win things and restore the brand once again. And, to his credit, he did the first part of that. The team looked more respectable under his late season stewardship, coming within 60 seconds of a return to the Premiership final. However, whilst he did steady the ship, he couldn't stop it from sinking, just making sure the boat was perfectly level before he went down with his ship and found himself fired. Parts of this were not O'Connor's fault. The board also fired forwards coach Richard Blaze at the start of last season and didn't appoint a successor until March. For large parts of the season, this left former fullback O'Connor in charge of the forwards. Without a specialist forwards coach, Leicester were left practicing ideas years behind the rugby curve. A team once known for being the place for forwards now had their pack working at a basically amateur standard. Except Leicester was no longer the place for forwards to go. In 2014, chubby tank Thomas Waldrum, professional ankle tapper and beard haver Jeff Parling, and Julian Salvi, about whom I have nothing funny to say, all moved from Tigers to English rugby's club on the rise, the Exeter Chiefs. At the time, they all seemed like good but not particularly remarkable signings. But looking back, it signalled the end of an era. They marked the moment Leicester gave way. Now, if a forward wanted to bolster their England chances by going to a big club that would best utilise them, they decided to overlook the kind of racist branding and head to Devon. However, it's not just forwards. Since the 2015 World Cup, 42 players have left Leicester. That's more than an entire squad. In order to focus on why, let's pick up on one position in particular, the fly half. Ever since Toby Flood left Tigers in search of a new post to run into, the Tigers 10 shirt has kind of summed up their squad's problems in microcosm. In this time, 6 players have taken up the task of being the guy that has to put up with Ben Youngs. They are George Ford, Freddie Burns, Owen Williams, George Ford again, Matt Tamua, and George Ford's ship brother, who's called like Joe or Steve or something. All of whom represent a different issue Leicester have had. George Ford's first spell and Owen Williams' only spell were both ended by the same thing. Money. Offered significantly more by Bath and Gloucester respectively, Tigers couldn't match the offers and had to let them go. And George Ford's brother Darren or Clive or Hannah or whatever is a product of the opposite problem. A championship standard player is suddenly finding himself in the matchday squad for top tier clashes simply because Leicester couldn't afford anyone better. So why can't a team as famous as Leicester afford a second fly half? Well, in an effort to maintain the club's reputation, Leicester remain a traditional and self-supportive rugby club. They own their stadium and their playing budget comes solely from ticket sales, merchandising and sponsors. In the last few years, for better or worse, rugby has moved beyond this and embraced the football model of outside owner influence. Saracens, Bath, Bristol, every town in France all have their own sugar daddies pumping money into them, and even the clubs without are finding alternative sources of cash. Yes, Wasps make most of their money from owning the stadium, but most of it doesn't come from the fact they play rugby there. It comes from the fact that the ground also has a hotel and, most lucratively, a casino, also owned by Wasps. So remember, next time you're out gambling in Coventry, yes, the house always wins, but at least it's spending its winnings on a different sort of hookers. What about Freddie Burns? A hit amongst Tigers fans, not costing them the world, and they got the money's worth considering he wasn't in the England squad and therefore available the entire length of the season. All in all, it was going pretty well with Burns. But then England's number 1, number 10 becomes available, and Leicester, desperate to be England's number 1 rugby club, sign forward and cast Burns aside. So, Leicester bring in forward. They bring in other marquee players such as Tamua, signed as a centre who can cover fly half, rugby's Forrest Gump and North Korea's saviour Johnny May, to Taffy Plotter now, and they continue to pay the ludicrous wages of Manu Tuolangi, who spends so much time injured he probably has the world's first NHS loyalty card. And hey presto, on their budget, Leicester have a pretty impressive first 15. But modern day rugby isn't won by the first 15. For 3 months of a 9-month season, all those players I just listed are with either England or Australia. And for the other 6, going by Tigers' luck, they're going to be injured. Efforts have not been made to build squad depth and play the game in reality, only to play it on paper. And that problem isn't exactly on the brink of getting any better. For the first time ever this year, the England under-20 squad did not feature a single Leicester Tigers player, their youth production line having seemingly drawn to a halt. So how do they fix it? They need to do exactly what I haven't and focus on the rugby. There are problems on the pitch, and there are problems off the pitch, and the problems on the pitch may have caused the problems off the pitch, but now the problems off the pitch are exacerbating the problems on the pitch, leading to worse problems off the pitch. There isn't an easy out. Like the character at the start of the JRPG, Leicester have to be prepared to grind. They need a board who believes in the coach, a coach who believes in his squad, and a squad who can all go 3 games without getting injured and forcing Tigers to have to pick Jamal or Pete or Quentin or Norfolk or whatever his name is, Ford. This will take time, and the Tigers board need to be willing to wait for results. Murphy might not be the man, but once they appoint their next guy, they will have to resist the temptation to fire him literally 1 week into the season and stop looking for quick fixes to what is now a chronic and systematic problem. For the last 3 years, Tigers have been trying to solve their problems with razor claws, when what they actually needed is killer patience. Thank you very much for watching that. It was entirely an excuse for me to show this clip, but I'm glad you watched and hopefully enjoyed the other 9 minutes of it. Otherwise, I want to say thank you again to everyone that has supported the channel on Patreon. You've allowed me to put as much time and effort in as I do into these videos, so that's greatly appreciated. Thank you to Rugby Warfare, likewise, and if you do want to get 20% off any of their goods, head to their website and use the offer code SQ20 at the checkout for 20% off, which is great, and a great bargain. And in addition, I want to say thank you to Gold Budger on Reddit for being a wonderful human being. And I want to also give a quick shout out to the Malawi Sevens team, who are currently trying to send a team for the first time ever to the Africa Rugby Championships. And there's a link in the description below if you want to help them out and just send a couple of dollars here or there to try and get them there and try and grow rugby worldwide and help them get a team to the Sevens for the first time ever. Otherwise, we're coming up towards the Ultimate Internationals. I'm going to try and put more then, so I'll be even more sleepy deprived than I am now. And I'll see you then, as I am, I'm entirely a stumbling block of blags under my eyes. I actually meant to say bags. That was a genuine mistake.